Congratulations, all four of you, on a truly fine film, which is opening the London Film Festival tonight. Firstly, a question for you, Benedict. Presumably a role like this, playing Alan Turing, comes with a strong sense of responsibility, not just to do a good job as ever, but when you're telling the life or some of the life of someone who's been wronged, to put it lightly by history. I mean, there's an extra weight there, I assume.
I think so, and the sort of disparity between his importance and prevalence in our modern culture, as well as what he achieved in the 20th century, and the comparative lack of knowledge of the full span of his story in life. I mean, there's a fantastic film, film of the play, Breaking the Code, which I saw, and I think I was taught some variation of what went on at Bletchley Park, and his name was mentioned, but the idea of getting a broader story out there and a broader picture of him to a broader audience is obviously something that does bear a certain weight of importance. And yeah, it's his legacy. You know, this has been an extraordinary decade for him because of pardons, because of his centenary, because of exhibitions and books, and now this film. So it's part of a momentum, I hope, to have him at the forefront of the recognition he deserves as a scientist, as a father of the modern computer age, and a war hero, and a man who lived an uncompromising life in a time of disgusting discrimination, contextualized obviously by the fear of the Red Threat, but still without that's not an excuse for what happened to him. And to also try and, on a sort of more personal note, examine something that's not very well documented. I mean, physically, there's no medium of him. There's no, ironically, considering what he was about, there's no, maybe not because of the secrecy, but he was, there's no oral recording, there's no visual or audio recording of him. So there's a huge weight. Yes, it's a blank canvas to an extent, so you have a bit of freedom, but it's... yeah, you're toying with something you have nothing to bounce off with as a reflection. So I worked out from Graham's brilliant script and Morton, and I especially Morton's research and what he guided me towards, and the people I was lucky enough to meet who either met him or were related to him, and however long ago it was in their life story, they gave me accounts that were helpful to personalise this extraordinary man whose achievements we know in a sort of broad headline term, but be more specific about who he was, moment to moment in our story.
Graham, I know that Alan Turing for you has been a personal hero for a long, long time. I've heard you say that you're self-confessed science nut as a teenager. So you obviously had a strong idea this was a story that needed to be told. That doesn't necessarily translate to the film business, assuming agreeing that this is a story that should be told for a broad audience, as Benedict says. Was there a mountain to climb there at all? Persuading people it should be made?
Yeah, I mean, I've been obsessed with the story of Alan Turing since I was a teenager, and I was lucky enough as a teenager to get to know this story and to get to sort of be aware of the story of this tremendous person who accomplished all these things that no one knew about. And I'd always, as a fan of films, I'd always wanted to see an Alan Turing movie. I'd always wanted to see his story told. As Benedict said, it had been told so well on the page and on the stage before, but no one had ever done sort of a proper cinematic treatment of it. And it was always sort of insane to me, like, how come no one has made a film about Turing? He's such a sort of amazing, fascinating character. And as an audience member, I craved it. I think just to get this movie made, I would have been a PA on the set of The Imitation Game if I wasn't the writer, and I'm so glad that I got to have that job. It was such it's an honor to get to have been a part of bringing a story to a much broader audience.
Keira, but Benedict was saying that Alan Turing, despite his fame, there was very little documentation, little or no recordings of him. Joan Clark is obviously less well known, but were there sources you were able to draw on beyond Graham's script?
There's an interview that she gave, which Morton told me about, which is online. She was probably in her mid-70s, late 70s, So yes, I watched that. And certainly took, I think, that quality of sort of that quiet, sort of very, very nice, very sort of feminine sort of type person. I thought that was really interesting. I like the idea that, she was absolutely somebody who was sort of breaking boundaries in her own right, but she didn't go about it like a bull in a china shop. You sort of didn't see her coming. And I got that from the interviews that she gave, and also the sort of the great friendship and love that existed between her and Alan. You could really feel that in the interview that I saw. You know, there was still, she was so protective of him, even talking about him. But I mean, relatively speaking, there's very little. Given how important she was, there's very little to go on with her.
Morton, I'm sure you share everyone's feeling that this is a story that needs to be told. But in film terms, for you, why did you want to do it? What grabbed you about making it?
I mean, when I read the script, I was shocked how little I knew about it before. You know, why wasn't he on the front cover of the history book when I was at school? And maybe, I mean, I just moved to Hollywood. I was an outsider in Hollywood, and to me, this is a movie about outsiders, about those who are, you know, different, who think outside the norm. And there was something about that story that really struck me. And I was reading a lot of scripts which were action thrillers and superhero movies and all that, and then come this period British movie, and I just became obsessed with it. It's it felt such an important and beautiful story, and he had such an unsung hero who achieved so much, and it's also this great human element of this man who didn't fit in, who was, you know, ahead of his time, outside of his time, and was carrying all his secrets, layers and layers of secrets, how, you know, his sexuality, how he was, you know, as a mathematician, became almost this like spy and super spy involved with MI6 with all the secrets, and it's both on the character level and on the story level. It became something I just needed to do, and I feel very privileged and honored to try and spread, you know, the legacy and the word of volunteering.